Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Redeem Her Time podcast. We have a really fun episode in store for you because oftentimes we say, my life is boring, right? But I want you to know your life is a story. And we're going to be talking about why your story matters and how to discover the core of your writing journey with limiting distractions, right? How many of us maybe have a book in us? I think I've heard before, like we've all got a book in us, and yet there's something that's maybe distracting us or keeping us from doing it. And so Dalene is with us today, and she's going to be sharing about how she helps people with that, and hopefully getting some of us to get pen to paper, and maybe others to actually get that manuscript that's been sitting in a Google Drive for a while out into the world. So, Dalene, I'm so glad you're here today. I find that I have a lot of writers in my audience and in my community, so I think you're going to be speaking to the right people today. Tell us a little bit about you first, outside of the work you do. Like, what all are you juggling in this season of life?
Hey, Lisa, it is such a privilege to be here on your podcast. I'm a big fan of all that you do at Redeem Her Time. And yeah, so I am just so passionate about helping writers get their stories out. So, long story short, I've been in the publishing industry for almost 30 years, and specifically in the self-publishing space since its inception in
Hmm.
like the 1996-97 time frame, pre-Amazon, if you can believe it. And so I've just seen so many changes for good and bad, but mostly good because more and more people are able to self-publish these days. But you have to write that book first before you can
Interesting.
publish, right?
Yeah.
And so I really feel called to especially help Christian writers
Hmm.
share their stories. And while my company, Lasting Legacies Publishing, was started back in 2006 specifically to help retirees preserve their entire life stories,
Hmm.
so I would help them do what I called commissioned biographies. I would write it for them, publish it for them, and all that, and they would just do it for family and friends. It was privately published. But then God called me to specifically help Christian writers back in 2021, and so that's what my focus has been since then. And it blends well with sharing life stories because there's a lot of overlap. But
Hmm.
I found that a lot of Christian writers are also business owners or entrepreneurs at heart. And so, looking back at my life story clients, 90% of them wanted to talk mostly about their businesses and the experiences they had as a business leader and how they were able to um, not necessarily balance family life as well as they had wanted, all of that. So it just blends really well together. And I just love helping people get their stories together and into the hands of the readers, whether it's privately published or um, to the masses.
I love that you've been in the publishing world for 30 years. You must have started when you were 10. So I was going to ask you, like, when did you know, like, you're a writer, like that was just in you? Was that from, grade school and, all of that? Was that something that developed more at high school, college? Like, how did you kind of discover your love for writing?
So that's just so fascinating because I've never really considered myself a writer.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Um, I love to read. Like I knew I
Mm,
love books,
okay.
avid reader. And then in college, I had an internship with the University of Pittsburgh Press, and that's where I fell in love with the publishing industry.
Got
And
it. Okay.
this is
Yeah.
what
I
I
guess
want
in
to
my
do.
brain, I'm thinking writing, publishing together, but you're right. You don't have to be a writer to be a publisher.
Right. And
Okay.
but then the Lord led me to, doing these life stories. So I am
Sure.
writing their stories on their behalf as a ghostwriter. So that's how that all came about. But first and foremost, I consider myself in the publishing realm. So
Okay.
helping people self-publish is like really my passion. And
Mm.
yes, I can help you write and get all that content together as well. But I see myself more as the publisher.
Okay. Okay. Good. Well, thank you. That's why I like to ask good questions because then I understand
Yeah.
even more as we have this. So before we dive into anything that maybe gets in the way of us doing this, let's talk
Yes.
about, if you don't mind, the difference between self-publishing and traditional
Yes.
publishing, just so that we're kind of defining the terms, starting the same page, thinking maybe kind of a real quick, because I'm sure this could be an entire episode, a real quick, like what are the pros and cons of both options, so that we can have walk in with that knowledge base.
Well, I think everyone initially wants to traditionally publish because they hear all about royalties and
Ah,
advances, right? You're going to
okay.
get paid up front and they're going to handle everything for you. And then reality hits. Because yes, you might get a small advance, but as technology changes, as the publishing industry changes, fewer and fewer first-time authors are getting advances at all from traditional companies. And when you get an advance, it's called an advance for a reason. That means when your book actually sells, you're not going to get royalties until they've recovered that advance money. So there's a lot of that at play, and you still have to learn how to market your own book, regardless of whether you traditionally publish or self-publish. You still have to market. But they do have contacts, and they do have connections, and they do help you with the launch of your book, which are very helpful and good. So with self-publishing, though, you have complete control, like 100% control over what goes into your book as far as the content. You get to know exactly how much money you're making. That's not behind a paywall or anything like that. So there's just a lot more control. You own the copyright 100%. When you traditionally publish, they own the copyright. So there's just lots of pros and cons. And there's also a third type, which is hybrid publishing.
Okay.
So it can be a little confusing trying to figure out what is best for you. So I actually have a free resource that people can download, Your Path to Publishing. And it has a comparison chart of all of that.
Okay.
And some questions and a workbook to help you go through all that. But yeah, in a nutshell, it's all it depends on, do you want the full control or do you want those connections?
Sure. Yeah. What I'm hearing is that at least the self-publishing makes it possible for anybody to publish if they want to, versus I would guess only a small percentage of people would actually be picked up by a big name publisher. So makes it a little bit more accessible. Okay. So now that we kind of know, okay, there is a way for us to tell our story in a book form without feeling like we have to have one of these giant contracts or whatever. Let's dive a little bit more into our story. Right. And, you have shared you have a passion for helping people tell their story, like your story matters. And, so why is this especially? You mentioned a lot of, business owners wanting to write books and tell their story. Like, why is this an important thing? I don't know if you would call it a must do thing. So feel free to take a stand and say, hey, if you're a business leader, you should be, or at least give us some reasons why, because let's be honest, it is a big project when you take it on. And so you've got to know your why before you start, right?
You do. And I wouldn't say that it's a must do, but it is something that you should consider.
Okay.
Especially if you are in your business for growth and for the long haul. Because a lot of people, especially, let's just talk about business in general, secular business in general. They want to write a book for the authority, to have that visibility and for it to open doors for other opportunities like speaking on larger stages and all of that, which are great. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think there is an even greater need for us as Christian business owners to write business books because, we have the opportunity to share the gospel in different ways. It's not, the gospel message as, Matthew did in the book, in the Bible, but we can share those nuggets of truth. We can share biblical references. We can share all of that tied into our business, right? And as women business owners, I think it's even more important because in the publishing industry in general, there are more male authors, right? And I don't have statistics to back that up. That I used to have one, but I don't have a recent one. But I do think that women Christian business owners, that's a niche that is ripe to grow in. We have a lot of experience, a lot of wisdom. And I think a lot of women shy back from sharing their knowledge for whatever reason, various reasons. But we can share our knowledge while also sharing biblical truth in a way that's God honoring and not just self-promoting.
Yeah. Such a beautiful way to tie in, right, what we do with who we serve and how those two things go together. I love that. So just out of curiosity, so we can have some kind of frame of reference. I'm sure there is a spectrum, so kind of maybe give us a range, but like, when you work with people self-publishing a book, what is the approximate like time frame that a project like that would take from, okay, I've made this decision to do it. Now we're assuming this person didn't like put it in the back burner for 3 years and then come back to it. And then, so kind of if somebody were to just not in a crazy pace, but just, a healthy pace, about how long are we talking that might take?
I would say a year is a good goal. A year to 18 months is doable, especially for a business book, because a business book is not your life story, right? Your life story has a lot of information. Your business book is much more focused on what you're passionate about or what problem you solve in your area of expertise, right? And so that can be done in like the story part, the writing part, if you're really committed, could be done in 3 to 6 months. And then the rest of the process takes up the rest of that year.
Okay. So let's say 12 to 18 months. Okay. Now you and I both know that still is a long time to stay focused on one project. Because hello, life is happening all around us, right? So what have you experienced as you've worked with people? Like what kinds of things tend to distract us from telling or writing our story?
So many things.
Yeah.
So many things. Number one, of course, is the work that we're doing, right? Work commitments, opportunities that arise, and we're like, oh, and we want to take advantage of that opportunity, all of that. So work is one distraction, but also, I don't know that you would consider this a distraction, but I think our fears.
Like that's a big distraction for sure. An internal one, right?
Yeah. Right. Am I a good enough writer? Is anybody going to like this book? Well, will it sell? Maybe it's not worth it. I'm not a great writer. All those kinds of things. And doing it on your own leads to a lot of distraction, right? When we have somebody to walk alongside us or a group of people in a accountability group, a support group of some sort, other writers that are writing along with you, cheering each other on, that helps so much.
Yeah. I always say, like, we are not meant to be alone, and there's something about having community, having others who are engaged in what you're doing as well, especially if they understand. It makes it so much easier, right, to do that and keep us going. I love the fact that you pulled on both external distractions as well as internal, because I think you're right. I think oftentimes we see the external distractions. I mean, let's be honest. We have this device that follows us around like an appendage, and it rings, dings, and pings. And this is a distraction. We have people who, knock on our door or, whatever things are happening, right, throughout our day. But I think you also are right in that we have the things that are going on in our head and our heart. And sometimes those are the more subtle ones, especially if we have a kingdom-related message that I'm sure the enemy would love to keep us busy and distracted from getting that message into a format that it could get into the hands of other people because, right, there might be some kingdom work happening with all of that. So what happens, or what are we missing out on if we don't take the time, because it is going to involve a labor of love and time to craft our story and get it into a publishable, like something that can get in people's hands.
Yeah. So I think what we're missing out on, for one thing, as Christians, is blessings, right? Mm. God has called us to be his armor bearers, to share. He's called us to share the gospel, to share his word, to make his name known to all the nations, right? And he didn't specify exactly how it had to be done or in one way that it had to be done. He just told us to do it, right? Yeah. So I think there's that. But also, when we write a book, we gain so much more clarity about whatever it is that we're writing about, whether it's our life story or it's our business book. We get really laser focused, and we get insights that we normally don't even really think about because we're really focused on it and we're reflecting and all of that. So we get clarity, and yes, it can lead to more opportunities, right? Whether that's more clients, whether that's more readers, whatever metric you're looking for, it can lead to more opportunities for sure. Yeah. So if you don't write the book, then you miss out on those. You'll
never know, right? You'll never know. Right.
Yeah.
I could see how if you're focusing in on a certain, area of what you're working, what field you're working in, how that could be, something that's going to refine things for you. And it's also going to help people to get really clear on what you do as well. So there is a reason to want to do that, right? So the thing of it is we need a process, because you can't just decide one day I'm writing a book and then hope that it's going to, pop out 12 to 18 months from now. So we're always here saying we want to be faithful and fruitful with our time. I was actually a part of an event a couple months ago that was called Stewarding Your Story. We talk here a lot about stewarding your time, right? Because it doesn't belong to us. But I think the same thing is true with our story, our business, our expertise, whatever it is that we feel called to write. Like, this is something the Lord has given us, not to bury somewhere, right? But to put out there. So how do we actually start putting one foot in front of the other to either start or start thinking through what that writing journey looks like?
Well, I have a framework that I'm going to just briefly give an overview of, but obviously before that framework is prayer. Like, we have to start with prayer. Like, Lord, what exactly do you want me to write about? And if it's a business book, how much of my own experiences or case studies can I share? How can I blend in your word, your message into this story? So start with prayer. But then the framework that I have is called CORE, C-O-R-E. It's an acronym. And so the very first thing is your concept. What is that main theme, that main premise that you want to talk about? It's probably related to your business or your gifting, whatever it is that you're doing. But what is it that you want to share with your audience? What do you feel that your clients really need to know more about? Okay. So it all starts with that one focus. You have to know, and maybe you have two, maybe you have three ideas, and that's okay. Write those down, start thinking about it, pray over those, right? Once you know what your concept is, then it's time to move into the organization part. Okay. This is all about how you're going to frame your message. So I'm guessing that if you're a business owner, you have a process already in place of how you serve your clients, right? So use that as part of your framework for your message, for your book. Whether it's, you call it a blueprint or the framework or whatever it is, it's that process that you use. So follow that in your writing as well. And then R in CORE is for resources. So start thinking about what kind of resources can you supply in your book or as additional resources they can download or use the QR code for, that would help them to get the result that you promised with that concept. Okay. And my guess is you might already have some of these developed, but as you're writing your book, you might think of, oh, well, in this chapter, I talked about XYZ. I could create a free download that would really help them, or a worksheet or something that would help them even more. And so what are the resources that you can create? Okay. And then finally, the E is the engagement. How are you going to engage with your future readers who will hopefully be potential clients, right? Or customers. So that means, what kind of platform am I going to be on? Am I already on some platforms? And am I going to be sharing my message about my book there? Yes, you should. But if you're maybe social media isn't it, what's your PR campaign going to be? Who are you going to send those press releases to? And once you get in front of the readers, how are you going to engage with them? Because it's all about trust these days, right? People want to know that they can trust you as a business owner. They want to know that they can trust you as an author, right? Your book is as a low cost way of building trust in a big way. Right?
Yes.
Because you're proving that you know what you're talking about. And whenever they have realized that, then they're much more willing to invest larger sums of money with your other offers, right? Yeah. So as a recap, it's just the concept, the organization, the resources, and then the engagement.
Yeah, which you make it sound so simple. So just curious, and again, it's going to be probably a little bit different for each person, but if someone were to think about, okay, I think this might be something I want to do. And what I love is, the way that I run things inside one of my programs, CEO Focus, is, we work in these 12-week cycles. So you can, instead of going, oh my goodness, I have 12 months to write a book, that can be very daunting. I may be overwhelmed. I don't start, or I may get kind of in too many directions and then whatever, so we can break it down. But approximately, how much time would you recommend if somebody wants to write, what the average book would be that you think is worth writing, not just the quick little thing, but like
Yes.
about how much time per week would they be wanting to commit to a project like this to really see it be done and done well and done in that 12 to 18-month period of time?
Yeah, that's a difficult question to answer because everyone writes at different speeds. But I would say, like I had mentioned before, like a 3 to 6 month window where you're writing at least 2 to 3 times a week.
Okay.
And for most people, they need at least an hour at each of those sessions because the first 15 to 30 minutes you're processing. You've
Sure.
just gotten done with some other task, or you've just woken up in the morning. You need your coffee, you need to get right, whatever it is, you need to get into that frame of mind before the words start coming, really. So allow yourself at least an hour, if at all possible, longer if possible. If, but that's my general recommendation.
Okay. Which is very doable, right? So if you're here listening and you're like, gosh, I don't think I have time to write a book, like you probably spend 2 to 3 hours a week watching shows that don't really add a whole lot of value to your life or your business, right? Or scrolling your phone. The average
Or
person
scrolling,
spends
yeah.
4 hours and 37 minutes a day on their phone. So what if you repurposed some of that time to, do some writing towards something that's going to do that? So I think we always find time for what matters, which is why I always like to say, and why does it matter? So around here, we talk about our time, but we also talk about our RODI, our return on time invested, right? So, like, what is the outcome of being willing to invest? I mean, 2 to 3 hours a week for 12 to 18 months is a good chunk of time. I mean, that is no small feat. And for, like you said, for some people, it might be more than that. So what's the return on the other side? Why would somebody even want to get into all this? And why would she want to keep going? Because we talked about this in our book club today. Very often we can be into something and we are just getting weary and tired. And like, if we can see that finish line and we know why we're doing this, we'll keep going instead of, jumping out of the race. So yeah, how can you speak to why it's worth it? What is the roadie on the other side of this?
Well, aside from that clarity that I mentioned earlier, right, your book, it's something that's going to last. So this is going to be part of your lasting legacy, right?
Yeah.
That's why I named my company Lasting Legacies Publishing, right? Your book, yes, you'll probably have an ebook too, but most people love to hold a tangible book. Like my bookshelf's full of books, right? And they're not going to just disappear overnight. They're going to last for a long time. And so whenever you craft a well-written book that serves a purpose that helps people, that is part of a really incredible legacy that will live long beyond you probably. And you just don't know how many people you're going to help. And that's another main reason people want to write a book. They want to help people, they want to serve people, they want to solve a problem, answer, create a solution to something that they see is needed. And what better legacy is that than to meet that need?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So, what's one piece of encouragement that you would give to the woman listening today who maybe has been hesitant to start writing her story, or maybe she got into it and then just got distracted, or maybe she's never even considered? So, they could be different people. So, you pick who you want to speak to, unless you feel like it speaks to all of them. Like, what would be that one piece of encouragement to help somebody kind of take the next step?
Just to start the process and to get connected with someone
Mm.
who can walk alongside you and encourage you. It could be another writer, it could be a friend, but somebody who's not going to say, "Oh, you missed writing, no worries." You want somebody who's going to, hold you accountable, that tough
Mm.
love every once in a
Hmm.
while, and to help you see it through. And remember, it is just a limited time,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, good
And if
season.
you
Mhm.
it's just that season, right? But there's so many benefits beyond it. You're going to look back and just really be grateful that you did it in the end. But getting started is the hardest
Mm.
part.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then like that, not even just writing for one day, but I'm just talking about starting 2 to 3 weeks to start building that rhythm and routine. That's the hardest part. So if you can get some accountability, that is my biggest piece of advice, no matter where you're at in the process.
Yeah. And I want to ask about some of that in just a minute. But one thing that popped into my head is I just wondered, do people often get bit by the book bug where it's not just one book? They end up going on to write multiple books? Or do you find a lot of people are just like, this is all I have in me and I'm ready to be done?
No, no, almost everyone that I've worked with has wanted to write more than one book. And I've even had life story clients who have come
Interesting.
back and want to do sequels because they've lived 8 years longer, right?
Sure.
So, I mean, our stories are never done.
True.
God continues to teach us new things, new revelations, right? There's always more to share about him.
Yeah.
And whatever business you're in, it's always evolving and changing too. Just like the publishing industry that I'm in, it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
So there's always more that can be said. And that's, we're on social media saying stuff all the time, right? Why not bundle it all together into a book, right?
Yeah.
So
Chances are, if you're a podcaster or you are a blogger or you've been writing content for social, you've probably got a lot more already written than you realize. And, being able to put it together would be just another way to package it. So I love this.
yes.
So I have a feeling you've got some resources that are going to help us be accountable with that piece of advice that you just gave us. So what would be a good next step? If somebody's like, okay, I want to maybe kind of, step into what this might look like, where would you send her next?
So I would definitely invite you to my podcast, the Ink and Impact podcast for Christian writers who want to write and self-publish their first nonfiction book. So that is there for you. But I also offer one-on-one coaching. So if you are looking for just a one-off, I just need more information, get me started, that's fine. But I also offer bundles for longer term accountability. So
Yeah, I love that. We need somebody who, like you said, is going to remind us of what we said mattered and help redirect us when we start getting a little distracted or discouraged. So we'll make sure to link.
Customized plan that you need. Yeah,
Exactly.
with my coaching, that's the main thing, because there's no cookie cutter solution for every author. There are
True.
basic frameworks, yes, but every author needs a little bit of different direction. And
Yeah.
so that's what I help them create.
I love it. I love it. We'll make sure we link that in the show notes so you guys can go ahead and grab that, listen to Dalene's podcast, and check out what ways she can support you in that. And please share this. If you know somebody, they don't necessarily have to be an author yet, as you've heard today, but they just have a message or a mission that they know God has given them. Share this episode, with a business bestie or two, because you never know. This may be exactly what she's been praying about or looking to do, and this could be the way for her to do it. So we're also going to invite you guys over into the Redeem Her Time community, where we take the conversation off the podcast and into real life and business and actually start doing something. Instead of just saying we're going to write the book, we're going to actually, have a place where you can, share maybe what your book idea is, or where you're at in the process, and how we can support you in staying consistent in moving towards that. So you can join us at redeemhertime.com/community. I've invited Dalene to be a part of it as well. So if you have specific questions for her, that's a great way to connect with our guests as well. So well, thank you so much, Dalene, for sharing your wisdom with us today. I know so many women are going to be not just blessed, but maybe even a little kick in the pants to get that book going that they've been saying they were going to do. This is a great time of year. Like, okay, this is the year. Like, let's do this. So
Now is the time.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that you're here and in here to help us in that process. So in closing, I always love ending with this question, just to kind of get into your heart and calendar. When you think about, right now, this is coming out in February of 2026, what is it time for in this season of either life or business? And why do you want to see a good return on that time invested?
Oh, great question, Lisa. So for me, I think it is even more growth in my business, because I really truly feel that more writers need to get their books out there. And so I am developing a group coaching program. And so the return on that investment, I think, will be huge for those writers. And so that's the big goal for this year.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Like you said, there's so many people who have that desire, and they just need the support to do that. So praying the Lord's blessing over you as you do that. And if you guys think that maybe that might be something to be a part of, make sure that you grab some of Dalene's resources or go listen to her podcast so you can stay tuned for when that will be available. So thank you again so much for sharing with us today. I can't wait to read the stories that come out of this. So if you got a book in your heart or this inspired you, please come share, and let's cheer each other on to finished copies, right?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Lisa. I appreciate it.